Over 30% of people over 50 are living with dangerously high blood pressure. But what if your home readings are lying to you every single day? In this documentary, Blood Pressure Mistakes, people 50 plus make, fix these. You'll see why a simple mistake in cuff size, posture, or routine can swing your numbers by as much as 20 points and lead to missed warnings, unnecessary medications, or even deadly outcomes. One false reading could change the rest of your life. Are you making the mistake that doctors warn could triple your risk, but never show you how to fix? The answer isn't just surprising, it's urgent. Let me show you what happens when the numbers you trust turn out to be wrong. Claire was 58 when her doctor glanced at the screen, then back at her, eyes wide. Her blood pressure was 210 over 120, numbers that put her at risk for a stroke before she even left the office. She had been measuring at home for months, trusting the device, never suspecting anything was off. But the cuff she used was too small for her arm, a mistake that can add 20 points or more to the reading. She was immediately put on 4 blood pressure medications. Within weeks, she fainted in her kitchen. Emergency doctors traced it back. The medication overload had dropped her pressure dangerously low. Research shows this isn't rare. 1 in 3 readings at home are wrong, and people on 4 or more blood pressure drugs face nearly 5 times the risk of medication harm. A single error, wrong cuff, bad posture, or a rushed reading can trigger a cascade that changes everything. Margaret was 66 when she first noticed her numbers jumping all over the place. At home, her blood pressure looked steady, until the day she sat in her doctor's office, hands cold, heart pounding, and watched the numbers shoot up by 30 points. The nurse offered a reassuring smile, but Margaret's mind raced. Why did her readings always spike at appointments? She started dreading each visit, checking her blood pressure 3 times before leaving the house, hoping for a lower number. It never came. Nearly 1 in 3 people experience this pattern, a phenomenon known as white coat effect, where anxiety in the clinic pushes blood pressure much higher than normal. For Margaret, the cycle became exhausting. Worry about the reading, then a higher number, then more worry. Behind every fluctuating number was the fear of another prescription, another lecture, or a new diagnosis. For many, this emotional roller coaster is invisible, but the toll is real. Every day, millions of adults rely on home blood pressure monitors, yet most never question if their device is up to the job. The truth is, less than 15% of monitors sold in stores are validated for accuracy by independent experts. That means the majority of people are trusting numbers that may be off by 10, 15, or even 20 points. For someone over 50, that gap can mean the difference between being told you're healthy and being put on lifelong medication. Start by checking your monitor against the American Medical Association's Validated Device Listing, or VDL. If your device isn't on that list, accuracy is not guaranteed, no matter how many 5-star reviews it has online. The VDL is updated regularly, and only devices that pass strict testing make the cut. If you can't find your model, it's time to consider an upgrade, especially if you've had it for more than 5 years, or if it was a hand-me-down from a friend or family member. Next, check your cuff size. Standard cuffs fit arms measuring 22 to 32 centimeters around, but more than 16 million adults in the U.S. have arms larger than that. Using a cuff that's too small can add 5, 10, even 20 points to your reading. If your upper arm measures more than 32 centimeters, about 12.5 inches, you need a large or extra large cuff. The right fit means the bladder inside the cuff should wrap at least 80% of the way around your arm, with the width covering about 40% of the distance from your elbow to your shoulder. If you're not sure, grab a soft tape measure and check. Most manufacturers print the size range right on the cuff or in the manual. Even the best device can go wrong if the batteries are weak. As batteries drain, the pump may not inflate the cuff fully, or the sensors inside may drift. Bench tests show that low battery voltage can cause readings to creep upward by several points. sometimes as much as 4 millimeters of mercury, before the low battery light ever comes on. Replace batteries every 6 months if you check daily, or sooner if you notice the cuff is inflating slower than usual. For plug-in models, use the original power adapter to avoid voltage drops. Finally, make sure your monitor is set up on a solid level surface, never on a bed or soft chair. If your device has a memory function, clear out old readings before starting a new tracking routine and double-check the date and time are correct. This keeps your records accurate and avoids confusion if you bring your results to your doctor. With a validated device, the right cuff, and fresh batteries, you've removed the guesswork. Now, every reading you take can be trusted to reflect what's really happening in your body, not just what the machine says. The next step is preparing your body for the most accurate reading possible, every single time. Margaret sits quietly at her kitchen table, hands resting in her lap, the blood pressure monitor waiting beside her. Before she even touches the cuff, she gives herself 5 full minutes. No phone, no TV, just a moment to let her heart rate settle. This is not wasted time. It's the difference between a reading that reflects a true baseline and one thrown off by the rush of daily life. Research shows that even mild activity or a brief bout of stress can push systolic pressure up by 10 points or more. That's why the American Heart Association recommends a quiet rest before every measurement. There's another step Margaret never skips. She makes sure she hasn't had coffee, tea, or a cigarette for at least half an hour. Caffeine and nicotine can tighten blood vessels and send blood pressure soaring, sometimes by 8 to 15 points. It's easy to forget, but the timing matters. Even a single cup of coffee or a morning walk around the block can mask what's really happening inside the arteries. For anyone tracking their numbers, this is a simple fix with a big payoff. Wait 30 minutes after eating, drinking, or smoking before checking your blood pressure. A full bladder is another hidden culprit. It's not something most people think about, but studies show that holding urine can raise systolic blood pressure by as much as 10 to 15 points. Before every session, Margaret takes a moment to use the bathroom. This small routine keeps her readings honest and avoids unnecessary worry. Once she's ready, Margaret opens her logbook. Each entry records the date, time, and her 2 readings, taken 1 minute apart, averaged for accuracy. She writes down whether she took any medication, how she felt, and if there was anything unusual about her day. Over time, this record becomes more valuable than any single number. Trends matter far more than an isolated spike. A steady pattern, morning and evening, week after week, gives her doctor the information needed to make real decisions. Margaret's log isn't just for her doctor. It's a tool for her own peace of mind. Seeing her numbers in context, knowing she followed the same steps each time, means she can trust what she sees. If a number looks high, she doesn't panic. She checks her log for patterns, not just outliers. And if something seems off for several days, she knows it's time to call her clinician, not to adjust her medications on her own. With her body primed and her log ready, Margaret is set up for success. Accurate readings start long before the cuff goes on. It's about building a habit. 5 minutes of quiet, an empty bladder, no caffeine or nicotine, and a clear record. These steps are simple, but they turn a daily chore into a powerful tool for health. Margaret picks up her cuff, checks the label, and wraps it around her upper arm. Bare skin, never over a sleeve. The bladder inside the cuff covers at least 80% of her arm's circumference, with the width spanning nearly half the distance from elbow to shoulder. That's not just a detail. A cuff that's too small can add 20 points or more to the top number, enough to turn a healthy reading into a diagnosis of hypertension. For every inch the cuff sits below heart level, systolic pressure jumps by about 2 millimeters of mercury. If Margaret's arm droops just 3 inches, her reading could climb by 6 points without her ever noticing. She sits in a straight-back chair, feet flat on the floor, back supported, not perched on the edge or lounging in bed. Crossing her legs would push her numbers up by another 5 to 8 points. She rests her arm on the table, palm up, so the middle of the cuff lines up with her heart. That alignment matters. If her arm hangs unsupported, gravity pulls the numbers higher. A single slip in posture can add 6 to 10 millimeters of mercury, enough to trigger a medication change. No sweater or rolled sleeve under the cuff. Even thin fabric can block the sensor and skew the results by up to 5 points. Margaret always checks that the tubing runs straight down her arm, not twisted or pinched. She makes sure the cuff is snug, tight enough to slide 2 fingers underneath, but not so tight it pinches. She waits for the beep, then sits still and silent. Talking, even soft conversation, can spike her pressure by 10 to 15 points. The monitor inflates, then slowly releases. If the cuff is the right size and her arm is level with her heart, the reading reflects what's really happening inside her arteries, not a false alarm caused by a simple mistake. Margaret knows that the biggest errors come from the basics: wrong cuff, poor fit, bad posture, or a slumped arm. One study found that using a regular cuff on an arm that needs an extra large can overestimates systolic pressure by nearly 20 millimeters of mercury. That's the difference between reassurance and a prescription. She checks her position every time, because accuracy starts with how you sit, where you place your arm, and whether the cuff fits just right. She presses the start button, then goes absolutely still. Not a word, not even a sigh. Even a quiet conversation can push those numbers up by 10 to 19 points, enough to turn a healthy reading into a new prescription. The monitor hums, inflates, and counts down. No checking the phone, no glancing at the TV. Silence isn't just a suggestion, it's a proven safeguard. Research shows that talking, even softly, is one of the fastest ways to spike a blood pressure reading, sometimes by as much as 19 millimeters of mercury. It's not about being tense, it's about your body's automatic response to speech. Muscles tighten, breathing shifts, and your arteries react before you even realize it. The first number appears, but one reading, by itself, tells only part of the story. Blood pressure naturally bounces up and down from minute to minute. Stress, movement, even the time of day can nudge it higher or lower. That's why the gold standard isn't a single check. It's 2 readings, taken 1 minute apart, then averaged. This simple habit aligns with ambulatory monitoring used in hospitals, where accuracy is life or death. That 1 minute interval isn't arbitrary. It gives your arteries a chance to relax after the first squeeze, letting the second measurement settle closer to your true baseline. Studies confirm that this method smooths out random spikes and flukes, revealing what's really happening inside your blood vessels. She waits quietly for 60 seconds. No distractions, no movement. Then starts the second reading. Both numbers go in the log, along with the date and time. She circles the average. Over days and weeks, these paired readings build a pattern that's far more reliable than any single number. If the first reading was high and the second lower, she doesn't panic. The average tells the real story, not the outlier. This approach transforms blood pressure tracking from a guessing game into a science-backed routine. The result? Fewer false alarms, fewer unnecessary medication changes, and a clear signal her doctor can trust. The power is in the pause, the silence, and the double check. Simple steps that lock in numbers you can rely on. Margaret laces up her sneakers just after sunrise. She's not chasing step counts or training for a marathon. She's walking for her heart. A daily 30-minute walk can lower systolic blood pressure by about 5 points, even more for those starting out higher. That's not wishful thinking. In a study of older adults with hypertension, adding just 2,700 steps a day, roughly 20 minutes at a gentle pace, dropped their average blood pressure by 7 points over 5 months. The effect is even greater for those who stick with it week after week. Her husband joins her, matching her stride. For them, it's a ritual, a quiet loop around the block, a chance to check in, to breathe, to move. Research shows that walking at a brisk pace, or for a total of 150 minutes a week, doesn't just help with blood pressure. It also cuts the risk of developing hypertension by up to 21% in postmenopausal women. The numbers are clear. Every step is a small investment in tomorrow's health. Sleep is Margaret's next priority. She aims for 7 to 8 hours each night, and when she falls short, her blood pressure tells the story. Studies show that adding just 35 minutes of sleep can lower systolic readings by 14 points in people with borderline high blood pressure. Less than 6 hours a night, and the odds of controlling blood pressure drop by nearly half, even for those taking medication. For Margaret, a consistent bedtime is as important as any pill in her cabinet. When anxiety creeps in, Margaret uses slow, deep breathing. 5 minutes of high-resistance breathing exercises can lower systolic pressure by 9 points, about as much as a brisk walk. Even a simple routine, 6 slow breaths in 30 seconds, can make a measurable difference. The science behind it is simple. Slow breathing activates the body's calming system, helping blood vessels relax and pressure ease down. These habits aren't just for Margaret. They're practical, proven, and accessible for anyone over 50. Whether you're tracking steps, setting a bedtime, or practicing slow breathing, small daily choices add up. Caregivers can join in or help set routines, turning these habits into shared victories. For those managing blood pressure at home, the most powerful changes often start outside the doctor's office. One walk, one good night's sleep, one deep breath at a time. If your blood pressure reading ever hits 180 over 120 or higher, that's a red flag, especially if you notice chest pain, shortness of breath, vision changes, or weakness on one side. Those numbers mean you should call your doctor right away or go to the emergency room. For most people, though, blood pressure is a pattern, not a single moment. A few high numbers here and there aren't cause for panic, but a steady upward trend over days or weeks is a signal to check in with your clinician. Here's a simple checklist to keep by your monitor. Always use a validated device with the right size cuff for your arm. Make sure the cuff is on bare skin, never over clothing. Sit with your back supported, feet flat on the floor, and arm at heart level. Rest quietly for 5 minutes before starting. No talking, no distractions. Avoid caffeine, smoking, or exercise for at least 30 minutes beforehand. Empty your bladder before you sit down. Take 2 readings, 1 minute apart, and write down the average. Record the date, time, and any notes about your day or medications. If your numbers are consistently above 135 over 85 at home, or if you see a new trend, reach out to your healthcare team before making any changes. Never stop or adjust your medication on your own. The most important thing is to track your readings over time. Patterns matter more than any single spike. Dr. Luke Laffin, co-director of the Center for Blood Pressure Disorders at the Cleveland Clinic, puts it simply: the best blood pressure monitor is the one you use correctly, consistently, and share with your doctor. For extra support, download a printable home blood pressure log or ask your clinic for a paper tracker. Many clinics also offer nurse lines or virtual check-ins if you have questions between visits. If you care for a loved one, help them follow these steps and keep their log up to date. Save this checklist, share it with a friend, and subscribe for more practical health tips. Accurate blood pressure readings are one of the most powerful tools you have to protect your health. Starting today. 1 in 3 home blood pressure readings in adults over 50 is inaccurate, according to published studies and clinical audits. This documentary has shown how simple mistakes, like using the wrong cuff size, skipping a 5-minute rest, or talking during the reading, can lead to errors as large as 19.5 millimeters of mercury. The consequences are serious: misdiagnosed hypertension, unnecessary medications, and increased risk of harm, especially for those on 4 or more prescriptions. While validated home devices and proper technique can reduce these risks, research shows that fewer than 15% of monitors in use are fully validated, and millions of adults lack cuffs that fit their arms. Some factors, like white coat hypertension, remain challenging to eliminate, and not every device error has been studied in all settings. But the evidence is clear. Routine, accurate measurement, and modest lifestyle changes, such as daily walking and adequate sleep, can lower blood pressure and prevent complications. By following the documented steps, Adults over 50 can take control and avoid the most common and preventable mistakes.